Welcome to Slow News Day. I'm Steve Poikinen.
And I'm Sarah Hall.
We are here highlighting the artists, activists, organizers, and all-around agitators who are pushing back against late-stage capitalism here in the heart of the empire. We are honored today to be joined by stand-up comedian, host of the world's only viewer-curated news show, Get Your News On with Ron. He's also a writer for the Jimmy Dore Show, and just an all-around hell of a human being. We're going to try and get to a handful of things with him today. Please welcome Ron Placone.
Hello.
Ron, thanks for
having me.
Thanks for sticking through with us while we had a Halloween ghost in our machine.
Oh man, I've been there more times than I could even count on both your end and on my end. So yeah, no worries at all. Comes with the territory.
All right, man. I watched your show this morning, so I would know, what you already talked about, what you might not want to get into. But one of the things that I have jotted down here is you said something about we already got over the fact that you don't get to own human beings. And I kind of feel like all we've really done is change the metrics on slavery. I don't know if you saw this or not. I know Caitlin Johnstone raised hell for a few days over it, but there was also a corresponding article in The Root that talked about how Hillary Clinton, as governor or first lady of Arkansas, how they had prison labor at the governor's mansion, and how they flat out owned slaves.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and yeah, prison labor is, in many ways the modern day slavery, and I wasn't trying to imply that wasn't a thing at all. What you're referring to was in the context of, I was talking about an article about municipal broadband,
right,
and how the tech company was saying that, this is a free speech issue. For big tech companies, this is a free speech issue. It infringes on free speech to have your internet publicly owned as a utility. That sentiment makes zero sense. It is absolute nonsense. And I made a comparison where I was like, saying this infringes on the free speech of Comcast to price gouge you. First of all, that equates money with speech. Second of all, that makes zero sense. They're just supposed to provide you a connection to the internet. And I equated it to, when people say we can't have single-payer health care or universal health care because we're infringing on the property rights of the insurance industry. We're infringing on their property rights. Well, the property that they're referring to in that case are people. They're saying that our lives and our health are their property. So I echoed the sentiment that, I'm pretty sure we got rid of that idea that people are property. I'm pretty sure we decided that was a bad idea, at least in verbiage a long time ago. So that was what that was in context of.
And yet here we are.
It wasn't in the context of prison labor.
Yeah. So. No, I fully get that. I wasn't trying to call you out on it or anything. I was trying to make the point to the people listening that our thoughts have become commoditized. Everything that we type on social media has a dollar value assigned to it. Mm-hmm. And that's just the commoditization of human beings is just so science fiction-y to me. And I really wish that in terms of how science fiction is becoming our reality, we went for the Star Trek style, fully automated gay luxury space communism, as opposed to the just nightmarish, you are only
kind of brave new worldy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're going towards science fiction, but unfortunately, we're migrating towards the dystopian genre in many ways.
It's weird. I've been trying to get across to people just how fucking cartoonish our reality has become, and when you were talking about Ben Jealous on your show earlier today, you brought up the point that Ben Jealous went into a fuck-laden tirade on a reporter who dared suggest that he might be a socialist, and that's cartoonish to me. It just, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird reality.
No, it very much is, and I like Ben Jealous. Don't get me wrong, but the guy, by his own admission, is a venture capitalist, and he explains how he still supports progressive policies, but still identifies as a capitalist. So the point I make is when even this guy is still deemed too radical and too far to the left for the contemporary American political structure, which consists of Republicans and Democrats. I think what I said on this show was something along the lines of, when you have a venture capitalist that is quote unquote too far left for your left wing party, guess what that means? That means you don't have a left wing party. That's what that means. That means you have a right wing party, which is kind of what we have in the United States. We have a fascist right wing party with the Republicans, and we have a right wing party with the Democrats.
Yeah, I'd make the or at least try to make the point that when the difference between Republicans and Democrats are wedge social issues and a penchant for knitted hats, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, no objection here, pretty much. And even those lines are sometimes blurred. I mean, you have Democrats that are pro-life, quote unquote. Right. And I say quote unquote because I think there's nothing that's pro-life about being pro-life. But you have Democrats that are opposed to gay marriage. So, yeah, I mean, even those lines are kind of blurred at this point. You have some Republicans that are to the left of some Democrats when it comes to pot. So, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous right now. And at the electoral level, our political structure as a whole does not represent the people at all. That's not a snapshot of the people that live here at all. Not even close. If it was, I would just kind of be like, wow, I got a long way to go to maybe live in a place where the type of things that I believe are good and right are represented. But I do think that public opinion is on our side, or at least more on our side than is represented, and so that means that there's something very wrong with the system.
Sarah posted an article on her Facebook this morning, and it was decrying millennials for their voter registration not being through the roof. And
their voter registration not being what? I'm sorry.
Through the roof. They're not registered to vote in record numbers like the narrative is telling them they need to be because Orange Man bad. And my theory on that is that aside from the fact that the picture showed an 18-year-old high school kid and the youngest millennial is about 26 now, aside from not understanding the issue, at no point do they touch on the fact that more millennials identify as socialists or democratic socialists, that representation for young people and for workers in general does not exist in our political sphere, and the 18 to 35 crowd votes at about the same percentage every year, every midterm election. They're just filling up column inches by changing the date and maybe a wedge issue that people in that voting group are not coming out to the polls for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, they always kind of whatever generation is the not necessarily the youngest, but the one that's sort of next in line to be the scapegoat is that scapegoat. And right now it's millennials, and it's been millennials for a while. And as far as, I do encourage people to vote. My attitude about voting, and we do have very low voter turnout, and some of that is justified, but I think that's because we sort of have a stigma in society where we prioritize voting completely backwards. Whenever somebody echoes the sentiment well, if you didn't vote, you have no right to complain, they're always referring to presidential. That's what they're referring to.
Right.
And that's completely backwards. Our priorities go presidential, midterms, local. It should be the other way around completely.
I
It should
agree.
be local, midterms, presidential. And I do, because we got a midterm coming up, I highly encourage people to vote regardless of how, regardless of how frustrated you are when it comes to electoral politics, because I share those frustrations. But, there's some things that I'm excited about, especially here in California. I'm excited to vote for to vote on 10 to kind of get better rights for rent control. It doesn't give us rent control, but it gives us the option to at least put it on the ballot. So it's a step in a better direction with Prop 10, and that could be huge. They're going to be voting, and I actually can't vote on this because I live outside the city, the technical city limit. But they're going to be voting for a public bank in Los Angeles. If we got a public bank in Los Angeles, that would change the country, not just Los Angeles proper. That would change the country.
Right.
Because then, you would see in a metropolis like Los Angeles, which is kind of, it's one of the biggest cities in the country, so it's sort of a kind of leads in some way. They would see what a public bank can do for a community. And what a public bank can do for a community is all that money we give to places like Wells Fargo, all that money that we pay, which is about in LA about 1.7 billion a year or something like that. All of that would be going into infrastructure and communities and things to better our where we're at, which LA needs a lot of help right now. And another thing I think that could lead to is better options on the ballot on the electoral level, because if all of a sudden we have this public bank where we have all this money and we're like, hey, this money is meant for our community now. We're not just giving it to some corporation. It's ours. Why don't we have good roads? Why aren't we doing anything about homelessness? Why aren't we pursuing single payer at the state level? We can, quote unquote, afford to pay for it. We always could, but now we really freaking can. The money's right there. We see the bottom line. Why aren't we getting it? Well, because we have corrupt elected officials. The mask will be completely off, and hopefully that means we'll get some better options on the ballot.
That's an interesting point, and it's a little bit of a bright spot in an otherwise bleak California ballot all around. I was noticing that where we live in Santa Cruz County, it is just wall to wall NPR neoliberals at every turn. And I have credited you with this from the second I heard it. It's one of my more fun things to point out is that NPR, according to Ron Placone, stands for Nice Polite Republicans.
Yeah. That's been around a while. I've never claimed authorship of that, but thank you. We there's a couple ones we like to throw around. I get your news on with Ron. We also say neutral petroleum radio. And NPR used to be a lot better. Like, I will say that just to kind of be fair. NPR used to be a lot better. They were always, they always kind of towed the establishment line, at least as far back as I can remember. But they used to be better than they are now. And lo and behold, it wasn't too long ago they started taking Koch money from the Koch brothers. So,
well, not only that,
that
but
might have something to do with it.
Insane amounts of Google money too.
Mm-hmm.
The Alphabet they fund a ridiculous amount of NPR's content, at least here in California. I don't know if that's national or not. Probably is. It's we actually have a local radio station here in our one stop sign town in Boulder Creek, and it was, the impetus was that we have this little redneck mountain town and we wanted our Northern Exposure radio station. They used Northern Exposure as the justification to do the thing. I know there's community radio in LA, but is there a station there that like highlights what is actually wrong with the system? Do you guys
KPFK is our big community radio, and that's something that a lot of people they just assume that anything community radio oriented is NPR, and in fact that's not the case. There's there's the Pacifica network, which is, separate from NPR. And a lot of the Pacifica programming is, and I think that's what you're referencing with Northern Exposure, these are low power FM stations, and these are independent grassroots community radio stations. And the reason the LPFM tag exists is because, you know, when the Telecommunications Act in 1996 happened and radio got completely consolidated and homogenized, people fought back and eventually were able to get lower frequencies at the low power FM level. This by no means makes it an even playing field, but this does, you know, at least give marginalized voices something on the dial. It gives them something. And, you know, in today's modern world, you know, you can kind of use an LPFM station not just as a strict radio station, but also as a kind of community resource. And you should have a strong blog to accompany it. You should have new media style programming like this, where you do, you know, internet-based audio and video content. So I do see the value in the LPFM movement. I've been a supporter of it for many years and still am. And yeah, I mean, there's stations like that all around the country, and I'm very much glad they're there.
So I've been wanting to talk to you a little bit about this since I found out that you went to IU. I lived in Bloomington, Indiana in the late 90s.
It's a great place.
I co-owned a head shop down there for a brief period called the Magic Bus. And then we took that to Indianapolis, and Broad Ripple opened up the Magic Bus there and sold the one in Bloomington. But I've got some pretty fond memories of that place, and I saw some great music at the Bluebird. Did you ever? I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but did you ever get just fucking rip shit at Yogi's?
Well, I mean, of course. Yeah.
Because there were, I mean, well, it was you had to, Yogi's wasn't necessarily like the frat bar when I was there. It was like where all the growers hung out, and all the growers were in like a brewer's guild, and it was just.
Yeah, well, Yogi's, when I was there, and I mean, it's been a little bit for me too, man. I mean, I was there from, I guess, 03 to about like 07. That was when I went to college, and I left shortly after I graduated. But yeah, I mean, Yogi's was, it was kind of like a sports bar-y type vibe, but it was also like sort of, a lot of different types of folks hung out there. The big punk rock bar when I was in Bloomington was a place called The Vid.
Oh yeah, I love The Vid.
And now, and because every now and again I do go back for various reasons. Now the big bar, like the big kind of like alternative, like punk bar is a place called the Atlas, at least as of a few years ago. I mean, it might still be out, and that might be out of date now too, for all I know. But
right.
It's a place called the Atlas, and now the Vid is kind of like a fratty hangout, which I couldn't imagine until I actually saw it firsthand. But yeah, somehow the Vid became a little fratty in recent years.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of fond memories of that place. I mean, me and Graham Elwood do a comedy tour together called the Progressive Comedy Tour. I know you're aware of that. And we're either going to do a Bloomington stop or an Indianapolis stop.
All right.
I got a lot of love for both places. Obviously, I do have a little bit of a preference to Bloomington, but logistically, it might make more sense for us to do Indianapolis. And if so, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I got a special place in my heart for Bloomington, Indiana. Unfortunately, by the time they opened up the comedy club there, I was already gone.
Yeah, that place was a trip, man. I spent way too much time at the Runcible Spoon.
Oh, dude, I used to. This is so insider. There's like 5 people that are gonna be really. But yeah, I went to the Spoon all the time, man. They would do $3 glasses of wine. And one of the things I would love to do, I would just sit out on that patio, especially on a nice spring or fall day when it was still warm out and nice. And I would just study and just sip a glass of wine. I'd only have one because I was trying to study. I didn't want to get buzzed or whatever. But
sure.
But yeah, I would have a $3 glass of wine at the Runcible Spoon and just kind of chill there and, read and watch the world go by. And yeah, that was a great hang. And I mean, yeah, I could go on about the restaurants there all day. There were so many places I really loved out there, and it's a great town. I mean, it's a lot like an Olympia, Washington, or an Athens, Georgia,
Right.
or like a Raleigh, North Carolina. Like just a really hip, bohemian, free-thinking college town, nestled amidst a bunch of cornfields and Republicans. You know, I mean, that's a really cool part of the state because you have your kind of like older hippie commune up
Need
in
more.
Nashville, Indiana, and then you have Bloomington, which is like kind of like the cool college town. And then you have Indy not too far, which is a cool city. Indy's got its pockets, so I like yeah, I have a lot of fondness for that place, and in the fall when the leaves are changing, nothing beats it.
Right. Quick shout out to Mother Bear's Pizza because I worked there for a while.
Oh, of course. Of course.
But,
It's sad what happened with that owner, but yeah, Mother Bears is great.
Man, that place was just notorious when I got to Bloomington, and it stayed that way through no fault of my own while I was working there.
Mm.
We can
Sure.
we can leave Bloomington, Indiana now. So
Well, I'll say this to end it though. The first place I ever went on stage to do stand up was at Bear's Place.
oh hell yeah,
So I'll end it there.
awesome. Yeah, dude, Bear's Place was just, dude, it was rad. There are a lot of Democrats right now running for office who are either waffling about Medicare for all or fully supporting Medicare for all. And the problem with that is that the leadership has endorsed PAYGO.
Mhm.
Has the memo been delivered to these candidates that PAYGO's dead before it leaves committee, or do they not care, or do they genuinely think that all 7 of them that get elected are going to storm DC and we're going to get Medicare for all during Trump's administration, which would give him all the credit for it, no matter how many Democrats lined up to support it?
Mhm. Well, first of all, I mean, I dislike Trump as much as anyone else. I think he's absolutely horrible. However, if giving him credit would give us universal health care, I'm okay with it.
Oh, sure.
I think it's worth it. The ends justify it. We can call it Trump care for all I care. If it's single payer Medicare for all, I don't give a shit. He can take credit for it. That's fine with me. He can, and if somebody just compliments his hair the right way and strokes his ego, and that's what it takes for us to get Medicare for all, I'll volunteer for the fucking gig. I'll go do it.
Go pet that ferret all day long.
But yeah, I think that, I mean, right now on both ends, it's just sort of like, will do, might do, it's just kind of speculation because, the Democrats don't have any power right now. So it's not like Nancy Pelosi can do what she wants. And the progressives certainly don't have any power right now. So it's not like they can just do what they want. So right now, right now it's just a bunch of hypothesizing. We'll see what may or may not change after the 6th. But, right now that's just kind of all it is. So it's not like we're guaranteed pay-go necessarily at the moment. Or not. It depends on what happens after the 6th and going forward. So, obviously PAYGO would be terrible.
Yeah.
But, it's not like we're guaranteed to have it necessarily.
Do you feel like, because I know you had Jeff Epstein on at least once, and I know that the Jimmy Dore show interviewed Stephanie Kelton. I don't know if you were there for that or not.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, rad. Do you feel like Congress fully knows that we already operate on MMT and they're just fucking twisting that knife? Because
Yeah, I think they know. I mean, it kind of, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they know that, they're buddy with the Fed. They can print the money when they want, and it just kind of goes towards bombs.
right.
And we could utilize that in other ways. Of course they know that. That's not, yeah. Yeah.
So why even
Nobody with real power is waking up tomorrow going, "Oh, we're friends with the people that print our currency, and our currency's backed by nothing." Fuck, who knew? I'm taking an extra weekend off. That's not happening.
So I don't understand why they aren't just pilloried every single time they say something like, how are you going to pay for it? Or we need to endorse like, I understand that MMT is relatively new as a concept, and that it kind of exists in a smaller sphere in, a few colleges and through people like Steve Grumbine and the Real Progressives on social media. But we all know that Congress writes a bill, an appropriations bill, they pass it, they send that money to the Fed, and the money is created. Like, that's something that you're taught in high school. But I don't know why people haven't made the connection that the appropriations bill is signed and passed and then the money exists. I don't know why they don't make the connection that that doesn't mean that taxes do not fund government spending. Like, the narrative has been slammed into us so hard from both sides of the right and center right ideology. Paul Krugman and Thomas Friedman agree on this, and I don't understand like how that giant lie just hasn't been completely fucking shattered yet.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, first of all, it's conditioning, like you said, and second of all, it's, even despite that, you would still need to get elected officials in power that would actually use printing our currency for something good instead of just, helping.
It's a fair fucking point.
Helping continue the war machine. But with the existing budget that we do have, I mean, all of those resources still go to the military, and that's very much right in our face. And it's not only morally disgusting because we have an economy based on killing people, essentially, and an economy based on war, but it's also like we could just reallocate that money that's already there and have things that the rest of the industrialized world takes for granted. So yeah, that is the piece of the puzzle too. And I think that, breeds frustration to people where it's like, gee, we could just create this out of thin air, but we also could use what is given for better means too. So it's almost like a double slap in the face.
Do you feel like capitalism is a religion at this point? Not, I mean, it is. It's not that it's an entirely faith-based system, but that it is what is, the major supernatural belief system in the United States. Like, if Christians really thought about it, at 70 whatever percent they are, there's more of the American population that believes in capitalism than in blonde-haired, blue-eyed, perfect baby Jesus.
That's a really cool question, and one that I don't know has like a direct. Is capitalism a religion? I think that in many ways, I guess you could say yes, because I think a lot of people, they believe in capitalism despite no real evidence supporting it. I mean, I watched this video on capitalism once where people, and it was trying to be kind of neutral, and they were like, all of the criticisms of capitalism have always been the same every time it's been tried. And I was just watching the video, and I was yelling at it, and I was like, yeah, that's because that's what it's set up to do. It's set up so that some people get really rich and nobody else does. It's set up to do that. That's what it's set up to do. They're like, the question is, how can we fix it? And I was like, that's what it's set up to do. That's like, it's like having like a lion out there and they're eating prey or whatever. And it's like, the problem is, how do we get the lion to not eat this prey? It's like, well, no, you separate the lion and put it somewhere else because the lion's going to eat the prey. That's what the lion does. No offense to lions. I'm just saying, like, that's what it's set up to do. That's what the system does. And every time capitalism gets too out of control, because it is set up to kind of go in microwaves, we bail it out with socialism. It's an unsustainable system. It's broken. By the way, markets and capitalism don't go hand in hand. You can have markets without capital. That's something people love to forget. You can have market-based socialism where you still have markets, you still have enterprise, you still have room for innovation and all those other lovely buzzwords they love to attribute to capitalism. And those are all good things. I'm not against any of those things. However, I see that they are not completely synonymous with capitalism at all. You can have market-based socialism, you can have worker co-ops, and you can still have, you can still have, whatever free market, whatever you want to call it. It's just they're worker cooperatives. There's a safety net under it all, and it is not a necessarily capitalistic system anymore, and that's a good thing.
iPhone makers have safety nets. It was just terrible. Sorry. So Steve was telling me you started not a coalition, something about net neutrality down in Southern California.
Yeah, I started a municipal internet task force.
We already covered that. No? Okay, good.
Yeah, I basically we hinted at it briefly because you guys referenced something I said in the show earlier, but net neutrality is a really important issue to me. I'm a content creator, and I think that to really get the change we need in this country, I think it's going to take huge social movements. I do believe that. I think it's going to happen outside of electoral politics. I really do believe that. And eventually it will bleed into one will scratch the other's back. But I think it's going to happen within we the people first. And, none of that's going to be possible if we don't have the communication system we've come to rely on, known as the free and open internet.
Right.
And we're at risk of losing that. The Trump's FCC tried to gut net neutrality. They're still trying. We're fighting back. We almost lost it under Obama. People love to forget that, but we almost lost it under Obama. So the permanent fix for net neutrality is taking the internet out of Comcast's hands, out of AT&T's hands, and putting it in the hands of people and making the internet a utility, similar to how you pay your garbage bill, you pay your internet bill. Other cities that have done this, they have the best internet in the country at a reasonable price. Look into Chattanooga, Tennessee, look into Sandy, Oregon, look into Tacoma, Washington. Longmont, Colorado is working on building a system. The movement is growing. There's an organization out of Minneapolis called the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. There's a movement in Portland. I communicate regularly with Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report about that. We make content together on the issue. This is just kind of one of those, again, echoing what I said about, I really believe in, trying to do something in your community and we the people trying to get together. This is my way of trying to do my part. This is an issue really important to me. I've been paying attention to the net neutrality movement since 2004. I'm not a tech guy when it comes to the issue, but I am a policy guy when it comes to the issue. So this is something I can try to do in my community. And I've gotten to help other people in their communities, which has been amazing. I get updates from people all over the country about what they've been going through. They tell me what they did at their town hall. They tell me conversations they've had with their mayor. Some people are working with the DSA in their community on the issue. Some of them are making better progress than me because my city's actually been really resistant on the whole thing, and I'm trying to find a way to change that. But yeah, we're basically working to get municipal internet in our community. Which,
thank you.
Again, means that you would have a community option for good internet. And there are many ways to do this. Many of them are affordable. A lot of cities can afford it. The Institute for Local Self-Reliance is a good resource to get started on that. And also on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ron Placone, I have a playlist dedicated to this, which has resources and interviews for anyone wanting to look more into net neutrality or anybody wanting to pursue municipal broadband in their community. And there's kind of documentation on what I've been going through in my in my quest. And I'm not working alone. I have people helping me, but yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
I'm really glad that that is important to you. I feel like it should be important to everyone. We were talking to Jamarl Thomas a couple weeks ago. Where was he? In Turkey?
No, I believe at that time Jamarl was in Egypt.
And
I don't know if you know what Jamarl's doing or not right now.
He's buying 22 gigs at a time. Then 22 gigs.
When YouTube robbed him and took away $2,400 in super chat contributions to him and demonetized his show, him and his wife decided, fuck it, we're going to spend the next couple of months staying at mom's house to save up for a world trip. They can both create content and do their jobs wherever they're at. So they went and they hopped on a plane to like Kenya. They went to Egypt. They're in, I believe, Portugal right now, and they don't have a return trip home date.
Yeah, I think he did mention he was trying to do something like that the last time I talked to him.
He did
Good for him, man. I'm a little envious, to tell you the truth.
And he's
not
got
about
to
the robbery part, but about the world trip part.
He's got to do that while getting dialysis treatments.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
I didn't know that about him. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I wish him all the best. He's a great guy.
He talks pretty openly about it. It's it was interesting for me.
He was born with a bad kidney, or got a bad kidney sometime around the time that he was like a teenager. So this is something that he's been dealing with.
So he's been dealing. Yeah, I have a buddy that's dealt with that his whole life too. He just had a kidney replaced. I didn't know that about Jamarl though. I mean, admittedly I don't get to watch his show all the time, but
right.
He's been on my show. I've been on his show. We've definitely collaborated on some stuff, and I did not know that about him.
Didn't know he was shooting a 7-day window. He had to break right out of Africa and go to Poland. Man, it gets hectic for him and his wife.
Interesting.
Where were you at with that though? I'm sorry, I totally cut you off.
Oh no, that's fine. On which part?
You were saying something about Jamarl, and then I just jumped in.
Oh yeah, I think. Oh, yeah, so Jamarl, he's got to buy 22 gigs at a time, and he's not allowed more than 22 in a 24 or 48 hour period, I believe it is.
That's how they set up the internet access in Egypt, was that you were only allowed to have X amount of gigs you could purchase and use a day.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's definitely, there's other countries that have it way worse than we do here. There's other countries that have it way better.
Oh yeah.
Like you look at, I mean, I was just in England and Scotland and Ireland, and I think England and Scotland were, because I used Wi-Fi everywhere, and the Wi-Fi was just freaking great. And the average amount that they pay for internet over there is typically about £20 a month. Which, even though the pound is more than the dollar, that's still less than most people in the U.S. pay, significantly less. And they have better, at least in my experience, and based on all the stats that I've read out there, they have better internet than we do. So it's just a matter of, and you look at some places. A lot of places that kind of privatized it the way we did, like Australia kind of did similar to what we did. They don't have the greatest internet in the world. They pay a lot for it. But places that kind of did it right the first time, they have, the best internet. So
I think I read, and this has been a couple of years, but I think I read at one point that South Korea had the world's fastest internet.
Mm-hmm. And I read that too, yeah. I don't know if that's still the case, like right at this current.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not sure, but yeah, I have seen that in the past too.
They have such a market there for gamers. Like they have a gamer-based economy almost in terms of what they do with their internet cafes and how they charge for it, and the amount of. I can't imagine what that electric bill looks like. I really can't. It's weird enough just in Santa Cruz County how much we have to pay here. We're the, I think, third largest or third most income disparate city in California, and we're on par with like number 5 in the nation for
Wow.
income inequality. It's insane here. I mean, it's beautiful, but we have a zip code with a cover charge.
Yeah, the UN just called our homelessness problem cruel.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's.
They would know, right?
I mean, well, look at. I mean, we have. It's beyond ridiculous here in Los Angeles. I mean, nationwide, 44% of all homeless people are working. They have jobs. Like, that's how bad income inequality has gotten. And I don't know if any, like, I've been trying to find, I haven't found anything yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number was even higher in California, you know? I don't know if it is or not, so I'm not trying to make a, a solid statement. But, I mean, people cannot afford housing, and you see it in your life every day. I mean, I kind of talked about this on Get Your News On with Ron, so I won't like rehash it too much because you guys might have seen it. But I when I got back to the States, like I was just over in the UK and Ireland earlier this month, and when I got back, I went to my gym in the morning because my time clock was all fucked up. So I woke up at 5 a.m. and couldn't fall back to sleep. And so I went to the gym, and, I saw some of the people that live there, because that's not an uncommon thing for homeless people to do. And I've been homeless myself before. But, it's not uncommon to get a gym membership if you can afford that, and then, just use that to take your showers, use the bathroom. So, it's sad to see, you see these people and you're like, yeah, they live here. There was a guy, he was just kind of, it seemed pretty obvious that he was mentally ill, that he needed help. He was kind of just talking to himself and slamming like a locker door over and over again and just yelling stuff incoherently. And, it's really hard to see, and that's the new normal now in the contemporary U.S. And then I left the gym and I looked on Twitter, and that was when I found out about the shooting that happened in Pittsburgh, which is my hometown, where a lot of my friends and family still are, and where the shooting happened is somewhere that my dad goes on a regular basis on Saturdays. So, I went from wanting to call my dad to tell him about my trip to wanting to call my dad to make sure he wasn't in a shooting zone. So,
we would like to offer
it was kind of a mindfuck, to say the very least, and I think it's an interesting snapshot of what is going on in this country right now, and it's not okay. I mean, we're at a point of crisis. And then 2 days later, there was a bomb threat in my neighborhood right down the street. I couldn't go get I couldn't get cat litter because of a bomb threat. And it's just so ridiculous that it's like, that's kind of the new normal. A lot of my friends are having kids now because of, I'm in my 30s, and a lot of my friends are, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how you don't go to sleep every night with two eyes open because you're worried that your kid might get shot at school tomorrow. It's a very hostile time, and I refuse to give up the hope or idea or belief that we can't do better as a species. I firmly believe that we can, and I like to believe that we will.
I agree with that sentiment. I can speak to what it's like to have kids. I've got 2 in middle school and 1 in kindergarten. And you do, man. You worry, and you hope that your worry is unfounded, and then you get an email that says, the school's on lockdown because there was a gun discovered, or what, and then the gun turns out to be a fucking Nerf gun, but then you still have to have the conversations with your children like, hey, if this happens, this is what you need to do. And we're sending them out. School should not be a place where you need to fear. Fear should not be, like, if you're nervous about a test, or maybe there's like a girl you want to talk to, then yeah, that's different. But fear for your life should not be incorporated into your education at any point. and the fact that these kids do have to worry about that, or that they're told that they really have to worry about that, it is weight that we shouldn't be putting on people whose brains are still fucking developing.
What about duck and cover when we were kids?
Yeah, we had duck and cover, but that was for the fucking Russians, wasn't it?
Well, it was just like you'd be bombed at any time. Be afraid, be very afraid.
Well, we had
maybe it seemed less
like
real.
Earthquake drills and shit like that, but I mean, it was not. I mean, at least speaking for when I was. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else's experience, but when I was in school, it was nothing like what's going on now.
Yeah, we have friends here in California, in the Bay Area where we live, that were involved. They were out in Texas visiting when there was a church shooting there. So now with you, we kind of know two people personally that have been affected by that. And like you were saying earlier, it just seems super excessive. But I feel like your message is a good one. And you're trying to stay positive here. Actually, it looks kind of effortless on you at the moment because you're in action.
I must be having a good day. I don't know.
Well, you're in action. I think when you're in action, it removes a lot of the fear and the anxiety and, feeling like you're part of or doing something instead of just doom, gloom, statistics, the writing is on the wall. That's part of why I'm here today. Steve had asked me to do this project with him, and I feel like I want to because I can. It's better than sitting at home, drinking about it or whatever people do to avoid the conversations or, the fear of asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, and I've tried, don't get me wrong, I'm not a perfect man by any stretch of the imagination, but I've never been able to solve a problem by pouring booze on it. I have tried. And it's very much backfired every single time. There's a comedy club or two that I will never be welcome back at that you could call and they could vouch for that in regards to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I decided a little while ago that I wasn't going to spend so much of my time in energy on the electoral politics side of things because that can just be so frustrating. But as far as what's so much more meaningful is when you get together with people and you try to make things better in your community. And so, and to some people that might sound a little like a little hippy dippy, but dude, I'm a barefooted vagabond that loves crop shares and low power FM and is anti-war in every sense of the word, loves music, was nurtured and educated by punk rock and classic rock.
Fuck yeah.
So guess what? If the shoe fits, I might as well fucking wear it, or the sandal in this case.
Yeah.
So I am a hippie.
You're about to be married, so it sounds like that's working out for you.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at. And to me, that's so much more valuable than just harping on the fact that your views aren't represented on the ballot. I'm not saying that that's not important and that we shouldn't try to move in a better direction and we shouldn't try to stand up for what's right and we shouldn't try to get better candidates and we shouldn't support better candidates. But, there's also social movements that are getting exciting things on the ballot via propositions. There's also different initiatives you can take up on the local level. Where the kind of establishment corruption isn't really as thick. You have real power on the local level. There's also other things you can do that just kind of makes your community a better place. You can volunteer at a kennel. You can, just all kinds of stuff. And that's important too. And I think sometimes we all feel so helpless on the electoral level because of how corrupt it is. And it's that way by design.
Right.
That sometimes we kind of throw our hands up and it's like, well, we don't have to do that. And we shouldn't. It's a lot more discouraging when you take that route. At least I think it is. So.
One of the aims of the show here really is to give people alternative solutions outside of electoral politics. So I'm really glad you hit on that, because it's vital that we figure out how to interact with our community. You know, like the narrative is, I don't want you to trust your neighbor, but you can trust your government. You know, or
Right.
this one half of the government, or this one particular president. You can trust that person, but your next door neighbor is a fucking scumbag who is out to get you and take your job and all that kind of shit. And if we're stuck glued to that media, that's how we're gonna walk out and see the world. And I don't want to see the world like that. I engage with my community. I have a garden project that next year, by next season, when we get it tooled, timed in a little bit better, we'll be able to feed like over 20 families who are food insecure.
That's huge, man. I mean, that's something I do not have. Whatever the opposite of a green thumb is, that's what I have. I have like just a deficient thumb. That's like it's just up a stranger's butt or something. I don't know, but I do not have a green thumb or anywhere close to it. But that is infinitely important. You know, when I was a part of a crop share, it was a local farm, and this was back when I lived in Tennessee, but they really wanted to make it accessible to people. So they even had work programs where you could get your share, and if you didn't have the money to pay for your share, you could give them a couple hours of work a week, and you could work for your share of the crops. And,
awesome.
I think stuff like that is really so important. I think that finding value in communities, I think even like stuff like bartering on the community level
Absolutely.
is so important. And I think it really is something that, if done, you know, can really make your life better and can really make your community better. And the 1%, they do bullshit like this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it's foolish for us not to, too. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm all about stuff like that. And that's where, you know, you really do have some hope and some power, because, you know, I mean, you guys aren't too far from Richmond. Look what Gail McLaughlin pulled off. Look what Gail McLaughlin did. She put together a progressive coalition. They sent Chevron packing. They beat Chevron. If everybody in every community in the country did that same thing, which isn't impossible, guess what? Chevron would be defeated completely.
Yeah.
Man, I want to live in that world.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not, and same with something like municipal broadband. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like working on it, because, you know, and I haven't succeeded yet, but I'm not going to stop till I do. And, you know, if everybody does that in their community, guess what? Comcast is done. AT&T's done. Send them packing. And their employees at the entry level that have nothing to do with the corrupt bullshit their companies are in charge of and are just trying to work an honest job to pay their bills, when we have municipal broadband, there's going to be jobs waiting for them. And they're going to be able to work for a company that treats them right. And it's not going to be the worst customer service in the history of the planet because of a bunch of corporate bullshit.
Yeah, we're of the opinion that no one in the richest country in the world should have to help facilitate in committing war crimes for the health insurance. And there's a lot of Lockheed Martin employees right here. We have a giant Lockheed facility right over a couple of ridges away. We're close to Richmond, but we're right down the road from Facebook and Google and all of these companies who are now part of a partnership with the government to tell us what is and isn't free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right in that there is the potential, and we've seen proven successes where people have been the solution to the problem and they've come together to do that. My fear is that there will be a couple of blue victories in the midterms, and that will put people back to sleep for at least another year or two until they get ratcheted up to find out how Bernie Sanders is going to get fucked out of the Democratic nomination.
We'll We'll see. I don't think people are going to sleep anytime soon, regardless of what happens in the midterms. And I think Trump wariness is going to bring some victories to Democrats. I do think that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be the blue wave, quote unquote, some people are predicting. I think it might be more of a kind of light ripple, but nothing you could take into the shore. You know, I feel like you would pass it up on a surfboard as far as how big of a wave it's going to be. You know, that's my prediction. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I project. And but I think regardless, people are awake right now, and that's the one kind of, you know, there's always something that really kind of wakes people up. And for a new generation, it's Trump. You know, I mean, for a lot of people, and some people that were just maybe a little older and weren't paying attention before, it's Donald Trump, because, you know, they realize that, oh, this can happen in our system. And hopefully they realize that it's not like things were hunky-dory and then Trump got here. Trump's the result of the system we have in place.
Yeah.
It's because of our system we have Trump. It's not that, you know, we have this system now because of Trump. No, it's because of the system we had that we have Trump. So, you know, I don't see people going back to sleep anytime soon. Definitely not as long as Donald Trump's in the White House, because that's what people pay most attention to anyway, you know, the general person.
Man, it's such a shit show, too, because there's... I read an article in Sputnik News yesterday, and I might send this to you for the show, but it's that the U.S. is getting ready to ramp up nuclear response exercises globally. And this is coming on the heels of us discussing, or Trump discussing, pulling out of the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty with Russia. It's happening. The organization and logistics are happening while Trump is deploying, 5,200 people to the border 3 months early for this caravan that
for no reason. I mean, just absolutely no reason. And and this is our tax dollars at work. This is how our economy is based. I mean, we are in many ways just a modern day military empire, and just like all the other ones before us, we will fall from that. I mean, it's not a sustainable thing. It's a, you know, it's a morally disgusting, unsustainable thing. We'll be no different than anyone that came before us. You just kind of hope that we just kind of fall gracefully, where it's like, okay, we're just going to be another country. We're not going to be this military exporter. I think the entire world would be a better place when we do that. I just hope it doesn't take a huge catastrophe for us to get there.
So that's an interesting point, because that climate report said we have 12 years. And the U.S. military is the largest global polluter. And what I mean by that isn't that compared to China, it means throughout the entire planet, if there's somebody doing the lion's share of the polluting, it is throughout an average of the globe, the United States military. We are an empire. Abby Martin was 100% correct to name her show The Empire Files. And what they've done to her and what they did to Telesaur is fucking shameful. And
I agree.
How do we sell the idea that we need a sustainable planet? Because it's not really getting through on the level that I think it's not getting the attention it deserves. Is it because it's such a ghastly concept that, holy fuck, we're running out of time to address this issue, that people are numb to responding to it? Because it seems like, hey man, clock's ticking. Really, clock's ticking, and the easiest things you could do is withdraw from your 800 military bases and stop dumping toxic shit in the water and in the air would be a common sense solution.
Well, first of all, the people that are calling those shots are getting rich off of all this. Yeah. So they don't want anything to change. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, the average person is really being stretched to their limit right now. I mean, when you have people working 2 and 3 jobs just to survive, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why we don't have a massive strike in this country, which I think is what we need. But, easier said than done, because to the person that's working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and they're living paycheck to paycheck, they're thinking, man, I would love to go on strike so I can have a better life, but you know what? I got children to feed, and until next week when I get paid, I got no money. So it's
so garden.
And again, that's by design. I mean, people are kind of being strangled. They're kind of being stretched to their limit, and this is by design. So how can you expect anyone to really engage civically in the way that we need it when we have that type of a system? So I think that's part of it too, and I think that whenever I see strikes happening, it gives me hope, because that's what needs to happen on a mass level. But I do think that a few success stories is all it's going to take to really spread, and I think we're slowly getting there. So at times it does seem very, very bleak, but there are still some reasons for optimism out there, and I mean, Chris Hedges said it. He's like, at the end of the day, at least we tried. At least we're gonna try, and I mean, eventually humanity's gonna end, regardless. That's just inevitable. Eventually,
Right.
It's just a matter of, the way I like to put it, it's like, okay, right now we're behaving like a deadly cancer. If we can just figure out a way to behave like a common cold, we'll be okay. The Earth can live with a cold for a while. They'll be like, you know what? It was getting pretty bad, but now you guys are just like the sniffles. I'm going to let you stick around a while longer, so that you can have a nice long life. I can have a nice long life. Your children can have a nice long life, and we'll just do the best we can to leave the world a little bit better than how we found it. At the end of the day, that's kind of all you can hope for.
That's way more optimistic than the sun will eventually explode and vaporize everything in the galaxy.
Well, I mean, eventually the Earth's going to shake us off. I mean, yeah, like eventually, I mean, I think Carlin said it. Eventually we're just going to be shaken off like fleas. I mean, yes, that will eventually happen. It's just, let's do what we can to, do our best to...
I want my soul to feel clean.
That's all.
Yeah, I want my soul to feel clean for sure.
I mean, I was texting with my buddy, who's a very, very good scientist. I mean, I was texting with him today, and I was like, is it really as bad? And he's like, dude, humanity's not going to end, but yeah, the world as we know it is not going to look the same some years from now. So yeah, I mean, I guess we just all, we got to do what we can to try to make things... to try to make things as sustainable as possible. And the one other thing, cause for optimism, is we can certainly do a lot more than what we're doing now.
Absolutely.
God.
There's also climate reports out there that's saying, like, hey, we can really reverse this and do a lot better. That's the good news. The bad news is we're really fucking behind schedule. We got to get started yesterday. That's what we got to do. And then you kind of look at who the powers that be are, and you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, they're calling the shots. That ain't good. But, we're working to change things.
Absolutely. People-powered movements that are more concerned with the task at hand than relying on government support are going to be fundamental to that. And I'm glad that you have started one of your own on the net neutrality front. That can't be understated how important this is. You can't, net neutrality it should be considered a modern day human right. The internet should be a public utility.
I agree.
We've kept you for about an hour now, and we started late, so I'm gonna let you go here in a second. But I would like to plug your upcoming shows with Graham Elwood. And you're in Sacramento.
Thank you. We're going to be, this weekend. When is this going to air? Is this going to air like soon?
This will air tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
At the latest.
This weekend, Friday, we're in Sacramento, California. That show is sold out, which I'm stoked to report.
Hell yeah.
We'll fit in as many people as we can. So if you don't have tickets yet and you're in Sacramento, please do come out. And if we get a big enough demand, we'll do a second show too. So if there's a lot of people that weren't able to get in and want to come back, we'll do a second show. November 3rd, we're in San Francisco. There's still tickets available for that. So if you feel like making a nice little Saturday trip, come out to San Francisco. We'll be there. And then we will, I'll be in Austin, Texas, November 10th. I'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, November 23rd. Tickets for all those shows are available at ronplacone.com. And in January, Graham and myself are going to Florida. We're going to Gainesville, January 9th. Coral Gables, January 10th. Orlando, January 11th. Jacksonville, January 12th. Tickets for that available at ronplacone.com. And this is just announced. There's no tickets available yet, but I'm really stoked to report. March 13th, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, hell yeah.
And, yeah, I'm stoked, man. And you know what? We're going to try to get to Santa Cruz. We could have tried to tie Santa Cruz on our way back down, but it just didn't work out because we were potentially going to Santa Barbara, but then that fell through. But, yeah, I'm going to try to build, like I was thinking maybe I could do like a Bakersfield Santa Barbara run or something like that, and try to hit Santa Cruz, Bakersfield, Santa Cruz, and kind of hit you guys that way. So we will be coming to Santa Cruz at some point in 2019.
Awesome.
I can guarantee that.
We just went down to Santa Cruz last Saturday to go hang out with and then watch Lee Camp's show.
Yeah. So that's actually what made me think of it, because Lee asked me to open for him in LA, but unfortunately I'm going to be on the road in Northern California, so it's like we kind of just crisscrossed each other, and I was like, oh shit, I kind of spaced on trying to incorporate Santa Cruz into our routing, but we're based in LA, so it's easier for us to kind of like just hit the state little chunks at a time and do weekends and stuff. So
Joey Diaz.
We'll be there.
Joey Diaz has a theory that if you're going to do a Santa Cruz or San Jose show, you should fly from LA into San Jose and then do your show and fly back because it's less stressful than having to drive the 5 or the 101.
The 5 can be stressful. I mean, I've done it a nice handful of times. It doesn't bother me too much, and we're gonna give ourselves plenty of time so we're not rushed at any point. But yeah, I mean, I always do check, and sometimes when you get those like killer deals where it's like $40 away, you kind of grab it when you can. So.
Hell yeah.
But those car rentals get expensive though.
Well, I'll tell you what, man.
Joey Diaz probably has a little more means than I do. He's pretty established. I'm not quite at his level, so
don't have the Uncle Joey fuck you money.
No, not yet, man.
All right.
Maybe some.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just mad. I said maybe someday, but
right.
But yeah, not right now. I don't.
From your lips to God's ears, man. Ron, we really appreciate you being patient with us and sticking it out with us. This has been awesome. Again, for the people listening here in California, November 2nd and 3rd, Sacramento's sold out. San Francisco is not. I really wish I wasn't fucking scheduled that night. I'm one of those people with 2 jobs. Besides this podcast. So I'm scheduled to work
He's
that
got
night.
more than 2.
But yeah, Ron, just thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you coming out today.
Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, if I can real quick, at Ron Placone on Twitter and ronplacone.com, and that's where you can find my YouTube channel and everything else.
Hell yeah. And are you doing any local LA gigs coming up?
My album, I probably should have mentioned this, but my album actually comes out on November 2nd. So awesome. It looks like on November 29th, I'm going to be doing kind of like a little just album release party in LA. So details about that will be available very soon. But yeah, stuff's happening. It's good times.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we can talk to you again sometime soon.
Very
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, Ron. You take care.
You too.
Bye.